The world of video games is not what it used to be. The gamer stereotype of a teenage boy playing video games alone in his bedroom no longer applies. Gaming has evolved into a mainstream activity, and today, close to 3 billion people play video games.
What many considered to be kind of a nerdy thing, 10, 15 years ago. These days, all age groups are playing.
Right now, the projections for esports is that it's going to be a $3 billion global market.
This new report out predicts gamers will have spent over $152 billion on video games.
The video game industry has evolved from a disregarded segment of media into an industry that generates between $140 and $180 billion a year. Sasfin, a prominent games industry researcher who teaches a course on video games at NYU in America, believes the gaming industry can be segmented into 3 distinct areas: games as a product, games as a service, and games as media. The era we are most likely familiar with is games as a product, which can be viewed as the buying and selling of game discs or cartridges from a retailer. Under this model, a customer pays a one-off cost for the game. This was the industry's primary form of monetization over the past 3 decades. The second era, games as a service, began around 2009. The consumer would download the game onto a device, often free of charge. Monetization would take place through a small group of consumers that would purchase additional content and in-game items such as new maps, unique costumes, special weapons, etc. The era we are currently progressing through is games as media. Gaming content is now platform agnostic, and monetization takes place through a hybrid model strategy that is both direct, for example subscriptions, and indirect, for example advertising. The biggest factor has been digitalization. The shift from physical copies of games to downloading and streaming. Digitalization overcame previous constraints such as physical boundaries and related logistical issues, which in turn shaped the industry for decades to come. Gaming companies were now able to reach customers across once previously inaccessible areas and assemble large audiences. Video gaming, or rather gaming, has become a mainstream activity. One of the most important events that led to gaming becoming mainstream was the launch of the Nintendo Wii in 2006. It changed a lot of minds about gaming. Its success made it evident that everyone, and not just a subset of consumers, liked to play games. Through the Nintendo Wii, an entirely new segment of gaming emerged: casual gaming. The idea of gamers as mainstream consumers had vast implications as to how games would be developed and monetized. Audiences coming online and the advent of the smartphone, specifically mobile gaming. Before the iPhone, users were pretty much stuck with playing Snake. The combination of the two ultimately led to the globalization of the industry, as geographical boundaries were no longer an issue, allowing game makers to distribute digitally to a global audience. Digitalization largely benefited Chinese game makers, who have gone on to overtake both their Japanese and American rivals. One can actually divide video game makers into 2 camps: legacy game publishers and the newcomers. Those that can be considered legacy publishers are Japanese firms such as Nintendo, Konami, Capcom, as well as American firms such as Activision Blizzard, Electronic Arts, and Take-Two Interactive. Newcomers are those that have benefited from digitalization, namely Chinese game makers Tencent and NetEase. Another factor that has led to gaming becoming mainstream is the push towards cross-platform gameplay. Cross-platform gameplay is the ability for users to play the same game simultaneously across different devices. For example, someone can play Fortnite on their PS4 against someone on a PC. Ultimately, the term gamer has lost its ability to clearly identify a consumer group, as the term gamer has ascended to the ranks of viewer or reader. Games are now designed for a much larger, diverse audience instead of the traditional homogeneous slice. Wider acceptance of gaming by society has revitalized the dialogue as to what games are and what their role should be in terms of socialization. With gaming becoming a mainstream activity, the underlying economics that drive the industry have shifted. As such, new ways of monetizing games have grown in prominence, such as subscription models as well as advertising. Under a subscription model, a customer would pay a recurring fee for access to a selection of content. An example of this product would be Xbox Game Pass or Apple Arcade. Another subscription model which is set to grow in prominence is cloud gaming. Under this model, gamers will be able to play high-end games on their local device, be it a smartphone or a TV, without needing a console or PC. The game will effectively be streamed to their device, similar to Netflix. Advertisers have also cottoned on to the idea of gaming as an advertising platform, especially with gaming becoming a mainstream activity. Since the onset of COVID, gaming has changed in so many ways. We've seen an acceleration of how many people are actually playing games. The number of users has increased, and it's increased across the different demographics, be it men, women, age groups. Everyone is playing games now, and the game makers are benefiting from that. We've seen in their numbers how their revenues have increased. They're reporting much longer time spent by the users, and COVID's really pulled forward the gaming industry into a mainstream form of media entertainment.